Have you ever felt the sting of betrayal, not from a stranger, not from an enemy, but from the very ones who are supposed to be your closest allies? It's a sharp, perplexing ache that cuts deeper than we often let on. The idea that those we trust the most, the ones who share our blood, our history, and our home, could turn their backs on us, can make us question everything we once believed. And yet, it happens. In this world of fragile relationships and fleeting trust, what do we do when the betrayal comes from within? To be betrayed by a friend is a hurt we understand, but to be betrayed by family? That is a rupture that seems almost unnatural. After all, family is the bedrock of our existence, the foundation on which we build our sense of belonging. It's supposed to be unshakable, yet when the walls of that foundation crumble, when those who should have stood by us in the darkest hours are the ones who turn away, we are left to confront an unsettling reality. We might find ourselves wondering, why does it hurt more when family betrays us than when anyone else does? It is because family represents something more than just people we know. It represents our past, our identity, our sense of safety. When they turn on us, it's not just a fracture in a relationship. It feels like a fracture in the very core of who we are. The foundation on which we have built our sense of self begins to tremble, and we are left with questions. How do we reconcile this kind of betrayal? How do we respond when those who should protect us are the ones who wound us? Perhaps we try to rationalize it, to explain it away. After all, no one is perfect. Maybe it's a misunderstanding, a mistake, a moment of weakness, but in our hearts we know. Betrayal doesn't just come out of nowhere, it often comes from a place of brokenness, from those who have been hurt themselves, from those who fail to understand the importance of loyalty. And yet, this knowledge offers no easy comfort. It does not undo the pain, nor does it take away the feeling of abandonment. But consider this: what is more powerful than betrayal? Perhaps it is the capacity to forgive, to rise above the hurt, and to choose to love despite it all. And even though the ache may never fully fade, there lies a strange, almost paradoxical truth in that choice. The choice to heal. It is not easy, but in forgiveness we break the chains of bitterness that bind us, and we choose freedom. In this way, betrayal becomes not the final word, but rather a challenging chapter in a story that is still being written. We may never fully understand why the ones we trust the most sometimes choose to betray us, but perhaps the real question is not why it happens, but how we will respond when it does. Will we let it define us, or will we rise above the hurt and continue to love and trust, despite the wound? That is the challenge, the mystery, and the call of humanity. When we are betrayed by family, the pain is not just emotional. It often digs into the very essence of our identity. It's as if we are forced to confront the uncomfortable reality that the love and loyalty we thought were unconditional are, in fact, fragile and contingent. It shakes us to our core, forcing us to reconsider all the times we placed our faith in those we believed would never falter. We may even wonder, is there any loyalty in this world that is truly unbreakable? And if not, then what is the point of trusting anyone at all? But let us not be too quick to despair, for in the ashes of betrayal there is often room for growth. It is easy to be cynical, to retreat into ourselves, to build walls around our hearts. Yet, there is a quiet strength in choosing to remain open, in choosing to believe that, despite the hurt, there is still room for connection and love in this broken world. The capacity to love after betrayal, to trust again after being let down, is not a sign of weakness. It is perhaps the truest measure of strength we can possess, and yet it is a choice we must make daily. What then should we do with the wounds that have been inflicted upon us? Should we carry them as a badge of shame, as a permanent scar that defines who we are, or should we allow them to heal and become part of our story, but not the whole of it? The choice is ours, and it is not an easy one. To forgive does not mean forgetting or excusing the betrayal. It simply means choosing not to let the betrayal control us any longer. It means reclaiming our narrative, so that it is no longer defined by the hurt others have caused, but by the resilience we find within ourselves. In these moments, when we feel most lost, it may be helpful to remember that our worth is not determined by the actions of others. It is easy to tie our sense of value to the approval or affection of those closest to us, but when they fail us, we must learn to detach our worth from their behavior. Our worth is inherent, not something that can be given or taken by the whims of others. It is a truth that, though difficult to grasp in the face of betrayal, offers a quiet solace amidst the storm. We may find ourselves wondering if we can ever truly trust again, and the answer perhaps lies not in the ease with which we trust others, but in the courage to trust ourselves. To trust that, no matter what happens, we are capable of healing, of growing, and of choosing our own path. Betrayal may change the way we view others, but it does not have to change who we are. It may bend us, but it does not have to break us. It can be an invitation to discover new depths of resilience, patience, and grace that we did not know we had. And so, while the wounds of betrayal may never fully disappear, they do not have to define us. We have the power to rise above them, to create new meaning from the pain, and to redefine what it means to love and trust in a world that is sometimes broken. The challenge, then, is not to avoid betrayal, but to find the courage to keep moving forward, to continue loving, and to refuse to be hardened by the very wounds that were meant to destroy us. It's natural to ask, in the aftermath of betrayal, how we can continue to trust or even love those who have let us down. After all, when the people we relied upon most prove themselves unworthy of our trust, how can we trust anyone again? The temptation is strong to become guarded, to close off our hearts from the world, to never allow ourselves to be vulnerable again. But what happens when we shut ourselves off from the world? Do we truly find peace, or do we simply trade one kind of pain for another? For isolation, while it may protect us in the short term, also keeps us from experiencing the richness of human connection. The question then becomes not whether we can ever trust again, but how we can trust in a way that allows us to protect ourselves without losing our capacity to care for others. This is a delicate balance, one that requires wisdom, discernment, and a willingness to learn from past wounds. It does not mean we ignore the hurt or sweep it under the rug. Rather, it means we acknowledge the pain, honor the lessons it brings, and then choose to move forward, knowing that we are wiser now. We recognize that not every person will treat us with the respect or loyalty we deserve, but that does not mean we should close our hearts to those who might, in their own ways, offer us genuine love. It is often in the face of betrayal that we learn the true depths of our own capacity for grace. It is easy to forgive when the hurt is small, but it is when the betrayal cuts deep, when the very ones we trusted turn on us, that we are given the opportunity to choose. Will we let this bitterness take root in our hearts? Will we allow this betrayal to dictate how we see the world, how we see ourselves? Or will we choose, with courage and perhaps even trembling hands, to release that bitterness and let it go? And it is in this release, in this act of letting go, that we find a certain kind of freedom. Freedom not from the pain, but freedom from the grip that pain has on us. For the longer we hold on to resentment, the more power we give to those who have hurt us. We allow them to control our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions long after the betrayal itself has passed. But when we choose to forgive, when we choose to heal, we take back that power. We choose to reclaim our story, to write the next chapter on our own terms. At times we may even ask ourselves, why should we forgive? Why should we choose to move forward, to love again, after such a betrayal? What is the point when the pain feels so raw, so fresh, and the memories are still so vivid? The answer may lie in the understanding that forgiveness is not about excusing the behavior of those who hurt us. It is not about pretending that everything is fine when it's not. It is about choosing peace over bitterness, choosing growth over stagnation, and choosing to remain open to the possibilities of connection, even in the face of past hurt. It is often said that time heals all wounds, but perhaps time alone is not enough. Perhaps what heals us is the active choice to heal, the willingness to face the pain, to confront the hurt, and then, despite everything, to move forward with hope in our hearts. This is the kind of healing that comes not from forgetting, but from understanding. It is the kind of healing that allows us to acknowledge the betrayal for what it is, without letting it define us or our future. And so, as we face the inevitable betrayals that life brings, perhaps the real question is not whether we will be hurt, but how we will rise after the fall. Will we allow ourselves to be defined by the wrongs others have done to us, or will we define ourselves by our ability to heal, to forgive, and to love again? For it is in this choice, the choice to continue despite the pain, that we find the true depth of our character, our resilience, and our capacity for grace. When we experience betrayal, especially from those closest to us, it feels as though the very fabric of our existence has been torn. The foundation on which we have built our trust is suddenly no longer reliable, and we are left with a gaping wound that demands our attention. The instinct to retreat, to protect ourselves from further harm, is natural, but in that moment of retreat, we must ask ourselves, are we running from the hurt, or are we running from the opportunity to learn from it? In some ways, betrayal forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about the world around us. It challenges our naive belief that those who love us will always act in our best interest, that family will always have our backs, and that loyalty is a given. But life, as we know, is rarely so predictable. We are all fallible, and no one is exempt from the capacity to hurt others, even unintentionally. So how do we reconcile the love we thought we had with the actions that contradict it? How do we make sense of the inconsistency between what was promised and what was delivered? Perhaps the answer lies not in seeking an explanation for why betrayal occurs, but in embracing the reality that betrayal is a part of life, no matter how painful it may be. It is a painful truth to accept, but one that frees us from the expectation that people should be perfect. The disappointment is not in the betrayal itself, but in the illusion that we could have avoided it if only we had known better, loved more, or trusted more wisely. But the truth is, no amount of vigilance or foresight can protect us from the hurt that others may cause. It is a harsh lesson, but one that, if we allow ourselves to learn it, can prepare us for the inevitability of future disappointments, without leaving us hardened or bitter. There is something strangely liberating in that recognition. Once we accept that betrayal can come from anywhere, even from those we trust most, we no longer place our hope in perfection, nor do we place our happiness in the hands of others. Instead, we begin to look inward, not for answers about the betrayal, but for answers about how we can heal, how we can move forward, and how we can protect ourselves without cutting ourselves off from the world. We can learn to set boundaries, to guard our hearts while still allowing for connection, to trust but with wisdom, and to love without the expectation of flawless loyalty. And yet, even in this recognition, there lies a paradox. How do we continue to be open to others, knowing that we are all capable of hurting each other? It is a question that may never have a simple answer, but perhaps the key is in understanding that while we may be betrayed by others, we are never fully at their mercy. We have within us the capacity to choose how we respond, how we heal, and how we rebuild trust, even if that means learning to trust again, but differently. The process is never easy, and it may take time, but it begins with the decision to not let betrayal consume us. One of the hardest parts of facing betrayal is learning to reconcile the love we once had for the person who has hurt us. It is a struggle to hold on to the affection we once shared, knowing that it has been tarnished by the betrayal. But in this struggle we are also faced with a question: what does it mean to truly love someone? Is love conditional, or is it something that endures, even in the face of hurt? Does love demand loyalty, or can it survive betrayal? albeit in a new form? These are questions that each of us must answer in our own time, but they lead us to deeper reflections on the nature of love and trust, and the fragile but profound bond that exists between human beings. Even when the pain of betrayal feels unbearable, it is important to remember that healing is not linear. There will be days when the wound feels fresh again, when the memories flood back, when the anger or sadness resurfaces, and it can feel as though we are back at square one. But healing does not happen in a straight line. It ebbs and flows, rises and falls, and sometimes takes unexpected turns. It is messy, and it often defies our attempts to control it. And yet, in the midst of this messy healing process, we are slowly remade. It is not the absence of pain that defines us, but the ability to persist through it, to continue forward, to choose growth over stagnation. As we continue to wrestle with the hurt, we might also begin to ask another question. What do we need to learn from this betrayal? What is the lesson that it offers us, and how can we apply it to our lives moving forward? Every painful experience, though difficult to bear, carries with it the possibility for transformation. It is through these moments of struggle that we uncover hidden reserves of strength, resilience, and wisdom. And though the pain of betrayal may never fully disappear, it can, in time, shape us into more compassionate, more empathetic, and more self-aware individuals. But the hardest truth we may need to accept is that there is no guarantee that betrayal will ever stop. Betrayal will come again, in different forms, in different relationships. It will challenge us, wound us, and make us question our ability to trust. And yet, despite all of this, we must continue to move forward. For the alternative, closing ourselves off, refusing to love again, refusing to trust, is a kind of surrender to the darkness that would take away our capacity to connect with others. And in that surrender, we lose not just our ability to trust, but our ability to truly live. So we ask ourselves, how will we choose to respond when betrayal comes? Will we let it define us, or will we allow it to be a lesson that teaches us how to love more deeply, how to trust more wisely, and how to heal more fully? It is not an easy path, but it is the path that offers the possibility of redemption, of transformation, and ultimately of peace. In the midst of betrayal, we often seek answers, not only from those who have hurt us, but from ourselves as well. We question our own actions. Could I have seen this coming? Was there something I missed? These questions can loop endlessly in our minds, each answer revealing only more uncertainty. We long for clarity, for a reason, a justification for why we were treated as we were. But sometimes the absence of an explanation is part of the harsh reality we must face. The world does not always operate in a way that satisfies our need for fairness, and people often act from their own brokenness, their own wounds, and their own limitations. What is important, however, is not the need for an explanation, but the realization that the absence of one is not an indication of our inadequacy. The truth is, betrayal is rarely a reflection of who we are. It is more often a reflection of the one who chooses betrayal. Those who betray us often act out of fear, confusion, or a sense of their own neediness, rather than a true desire to cause harm. And while this understanding does not absolve them of their actions, it can help us reframe our response. When we see betrayal as a reflection of the other person's shortcomings rather than our own, we begin to shift the narrative. We no longer see ourselves as the victim of someone else's malice, but as someone who has been wronged, yes, but not diminished by the wrong. This shift is not easy, for the emotions tied to betrayal are often so powerful that they cloud our judgment. It is easier to hold on to our anger, to allow it to fuel our desire for retribution. And yet, in that anger, we may find ourselves consumed by the very thing that betrayed us in the first place. If we allow anger and bitterness to dictate our actions, we let the betrayal continue to control us long after it has occurred. The challenge is to not let the betrayal define us, nor allow the anger to strip us of our own integrity. This is where the true battle lies, not in fighting against the person who has betrayed us, but in fighting against the urge to let bitterness overtake our hearts. And it is here, in the quiet moments of reflection, that we begin to understand that we have a choice. In the aftermath of betrayal, we can choose to give in to the rage and pain, or we can choose to rise above it. It is not an easy choice, no one would claim that it is, but it is a choice nonetheless. The act of choosing not to let the betrayal define us is an act of reclaiming our own power. It is an assertion that, despite the pain, we remain in control of how we respond to the world and the people in it. But what does it look like to truly rise above betrayal? It begins with acknowledging the hurt, recognizing the weight of the wound, and then choosing not to let it control the course of our lives. Rising above betrayal doesn't mean we simply move on without processing the pain. It means we allow ourselves to grieve, to feel the loss, and to understand the impact of what has been done. But we do so without letting that grief consume us. We choose to let it pass through us rather than taking root in our hearts. In choosing to rise above, we also choose to release the need for vengeance. Vengeance may feel justified, even righteous, but it can only perpetuate the cycle of pain. By seeking revenge, we only continue to fuel the conflict, giving the betrayal more power over us. Instead, we choose forgiveness, not for the sake of the one who betrayed us, but for our own sake. Forgiveness does not mean excusing the wrong, but it does mean freeing ourselves from the hold that the betrayal has over us. It means finding a way to let go of the pain, to stop reliving the hurt, and to start healing. This is where we come face to face with one of the most difficult aspects of betrayal, the decision to heal. Healing is not something that can be done overnight, nor is it something that can be forced. It is a process, a slow, sometimes agonizing journey that requires patience and self-compassion. In many ways, healing is not about returning to the way things were before the betrayal, because that is no longer possible. Instead, it is about creating a new narrative, one that acknowledges the hurt, but also recognizes the potential for growth and renewal. The journey of healing may also require us to re-examine the relationships we have with those around us. In the wake of betrayal, we may find that our trust in others has been fractured, and we may struggle to allow ourselves to be vulnerable again. But rather than retreating into isolation, we must learn how to trust again, not by blindly giving our hearts away, but by learning how to trust wisely. This trust must be built over time, brick by brick, and it must be earned. But even in the process of rebuilding trust, there is an opportunity for growth. We learn more about our own needs, our boundaries, and what truly matters in our relationships. And so, while betrayal is a painful and disorienting experience, it can also be a moment of transformation. It forces us to reevaluate our relationships, our beliefs, and ourselves. It teaches us to be more discerning in whom we trust, but also to be more compassionate, recognizing that we all have our flaws. The question we must ask ourselves, then, is not whether betrayal will come, but how we will respond when it does. Will we allow it to break us, or will we use it as an opportunity to rebuild ourselves, stronger and more resilient than before? This is the challenge and the gift that betrayal offers us. In the aftermath of betrayal, there is a temptation to shut down, to withdraw from the world and the people who inhabit it. It feels safer to keep our emotions guarded, to shield our hearts from further harm. But in doing so, we risk losing something far more precious, the ability to experience genuine connection. Yes, betrayal has the power to scar us, to make us more cautious, more wary, but it also presents a choice, to turn inward, where bitterness can fester, or to slowly, carefully open our hearts again. Choosing to engage with the world after being hurt requires great courage. It is not about rushing back into trust, but about learning to trust in ways that are grounded in wisdom rather than vulnerability. The road to re-engagement with others isn't a straight path. There are days when the weight of past betrayals will feel overwhelming, and the wounds will seem to flare up again, like fresh cuts that never fully healed. There are days when it feels as if we are moving backward, as if the anger and sadness from the past have resurfaced. And yet, in those moments, we are presented with the opportunity to remind ourselves that healing is not about perfection. It is not about achieving some ideal state where the past no longer affects us. Healing is about learning to live with the scars, to accept them as part of our story, and to keep moving forward despite them. In learning to trust again, we may discover something crucial. Trust is not a simple exchange of faith between two people. It is a dynamic process, built over time, shaped by actions, and tested by challenges. After betrayal, the process of rebuilding trust, both in others and in ourselves, takes on a new, deeper meaning. It becomes less about expecting others to be flawless and more about acknowledging that we are all fallible. Trust, then, becomes a reflection of our willingness to believe that, despite our imperfections, we are still worthy of love and connection. Perhaps one of the most profound lessons that betrayal teaches us is the realization that the power to heal ultimately rests within us. While we cannot control the actions of others, we do have control over how we respond. We have the choice to let the betrayal define us, to hold on to the pain and anger, or to make the conscious decision to release that grip and allow ourselves to heal. This is not to say that healing will happen quickly, nor that it will be easy. Healing is a slow process, often marked by setbacks, but it is also deeply transformative. Each step we take toward healing is a step toward reclaiming our power and our peace. As we navigate the complexities of betrayal, we may find ourselves asking, why? Why did this happen? Why did they hurt us? These questions often have no satisfactory answers, and yet the search for meaning in the face of betrayal is part of our human nature. We want to understand, to make sense of the pain, to find a reason that somehow justifies the hurt. But perhaps the deeper question isn't why the betrayal happened, but rather how we will choose to move forward in its wake. Will we let it narrow our world, turning us into people who distrust, resent, and isolate ourselves? Or will we choose to rise above it, to embrace the complexities of our own humanity and the humanity of others, despite the flaws we all carry? There is something incredibly powerful in choosing to see the humanity in those who have hurt us. It does not excuse their actions, nor does it make the pain any less real, but it helps us recognize that their actions too stem from their own struggles, their own fears, their own wounds. It is a sobering thought to realize that we are all capable of causing harm, and that betrayal, though it may feel personal, is often more about the betrayer's inner turmoil than about us as individuals. And yet, even in this recognition, there is a release from the need to hold on to anger or revenge. It does not diminish the wrong that has been done, but it allows us to shift our focus from punishment to healing. When we confront the reality of betrayal, we are also forced to confront the notion of forgiveness. Forgiveness, however, is often misunderstood. It is not a simple act of letting go or forgetting. It is not about telling the person who hurt us that their actions were acceptable. Forgiveness is about freeing ourselves from the hold that the betrayal has over us. It is about choosing peace over pain, even when that peace seems elusive. It is about releasing the burden of bitterness that weighs heavily on our hearts. Forgiveness is not for the one who betrayed us. It is for us. It is an act of self-liberation, a way of reclaiming our own emotional well-being. In the process of healing, we may discover that betrayal, while painful, offers us an unexpected gift, the opportunity for deeper self-awareness. It forces us to examine our own values, to ask ourselves what we truly need from those we love, and to recognize the boundaries that must be set in order to protect our hearts. It invites us to redefine what loyalty and trust mean, not in idealized terms, but in ways that are realistic and grounded in the complexity of human relationships. It teaches us the power of resilience, of rising again after we have been knocked down, and of moving forward despite the scars that remain. Betrayal does not have to be the end of our story. It may mark a painful chapter, but it does not have to define the entire narrative of our lives. How we choose to respond, how we choose to heal, and how we choose to trust again, these are the things that will shape our future. The journey may be difficult, the wounds may take time to heal, but the resilience we develop in the process has the potential to transform us in ways we could never have imagined. In choosing to heal, to forgive, and to love again, we find that we have not only overcome betrayal, but that we have become stronger, wiser, and more capable of embracing the richness of human connection. Betrayal may test us in ways we never imagined, but it also offers us a profound opportunity, the chance to reclaim our power, to rediscover our strength, and to choose how we move forward in the face of pain. We can let betrayal define us by bitterness, or we can let it refine us, shaping us into more compassionate, resilient, and wiser individuals. The power to heal, to forgive, and to trust again lies within us. It is not easy, nor is it quick, but the journey is worth it. For when we rise above betrayal, we reclaim not only our peace, but also our capacity to love again, to trust again, and to move forward with a heart that is open to the possibilities of a brighter future. Remember, betrayal does not have the final say. Our strength, our resilience, and our ability to choose how we respond to it, that is where our true power lies. Let us choose to rise, to heal, and to become the people we were always meant to be.